You know when I stop my video, how do I change that picture?
This is Harbor Town.
You got to go do it online, right? On Zoom.
I am on Zoom.
Under your profile.
Harbor Town is an all-new series from
There we
Miniature
go.
Building Authority.
Yeah,
the
I
leader
like that
in
one,
Tabletop gaming scene.
Why are you changing that, man?
I was gonna put the
Flexible
one I have on
and
Discord.
Harbor
It's like
Town
10
will take your games to a new destination.
I don't really care. I only brought it up because you were like, I mentioned, why don't you use the one you have on the other guy? So let's ask Brian.
What's up, Anna?
What? Why Jason window himself?
Oh, thanks. Come on, man. That was. You guys are
I would think
terrible.
it's obvious. I'm afraid I want to have like the bright light from the right side instead of the mood light from the left.
You always say good at a mood lighting and meet him. Awesome mood lighting.
Well, you know what it is? You got to use more than just the computer screen.
Yes, I have 3 screens and 2 lamps and some Christmas decorations.
Too late.
And still it looks like crap, so that's... Sorry, I'm going to have some hot chocolate.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm going to eat a little bit because I watched Carlos and I forgot to have something to eat in between, so I
Hey,
had to...
Anna.
I'm having hot chocolate too.
Oh,
Anna,
you guys are
if you're-
wrong, man. I'm
If you
not
don't
having.
have anything to share, you shouldn't have it. I mean, seriously, how rude is that?
Yes, exactly, yep. Well, I could all give you it if you were here. Yep.
Hey.
That's really
Mark.
awesome. You know, at least you can hear us. At least you can hear us, Katana. I don't have to worry about that problem this time.
That's my son listening to a song singing.
That's all right. You guys can all hear us, right? And all the sound sounds good there online, guys. So I'm doing my best here. We wanted to hop on a little early. We don't want to let you guys sit around a lot. It was an awesome interview with Carlos and Luke. Really fantastic.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
great.
Good to hear. Thanks, Rox. So. Hey, yeah, hey, what? Hey.
Hey.
I'm talking to my son.
Hey, that's Dwayne. Dwayne from What's Happening. Hey. That's awesome. So we got. Here, Tim. We'll play this next because this is right up your alley. I just put down coming more in 2020 because we don't have anything new yet. So right. Of course, we'll all be excited for that too when it does come on. I got a mega announcement about you're not gonna have to see the same old stuff very shortly. Hopefully, well, we'll talk about that. Something cool's coming.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be. As I get my balls busted for saying all the time, man, it's super cool.
Super cool guy.
Super cool.
You could say shiny. I got some really shiny news.
Oh, I just dropped all my papers on the floor. For tonight. There we go.
You send out anything?
What's that?
You didn't send any notes out there, right?
No, I didn't. Yeah, oh, there you go. Hey, what's up, Duff? What's up, Jimmy?
I find
Hey, I am
Yeah.
not. Thank you.
So we're going to be starting a little early due to the time frame. We don't want you guys sitting around at 9:30. There's no reason.
I usually have to study the notes with all the people here with masters in Greyhawk anthropology and Greyhawk geography.
Yeah, but that's all
study
right,
keep up.
man. Something, Tim, there's something wrong with not
We're
having
supposed
that.
to talk rules tonight, and
Yeah,
I'm
this is
certainly
right.
not
Yeah, we're
a
talking.
master's in
Yeah,
that.
this is going to be an awesome
I
one
know.
tonight. Talking some rules, talking some tweaks, talking. You're
Yeah.
the king of tweaks.
And Tim, I've seen your camp, a little
I
bit of your
misheard
camp games
that.
now, and your awesome inventions or terrifying inventions rather. So, yeah, this is.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I do take credit for some of Jay's emotional scar.
Yep, you have to. and just Tim is the king of leaving indelible, nightmarish marks in my brain. That when I sleep, I wake up in the middle of the night. You know, oh my God, you know, I was getting my feet whipped off. You know, that kind of stuff. So, you know, from his game. So.
That wasn't a hope.
I know.
Still, you can't help but empathize.
So we're going right to the entry screen here. By the way, I've been putting this Trials of the Legion thing up, guys. It is happening 2020, early 2020. I think we're going to do one adventure before it, 1 2-week adventure starting January 2nd and 9th. And then we're going to go on the 16th. We're going to go into the Trials of the Legion. We're going to start them up. So, yeah, and that's going to be high level. We've got a lot of high level stuff coming. So tonight, this is the one I was gonna, if I was in an awful mood on Sunday, I was gonna do it. But now look at all the people I have. I got 3 other hosts with me tonight instead of me doing it by myself. So it was good that I waited one day. and hopefully it doesn't bust any stones that the Eagles won too. So the King of Twinks? No, I didn't call him the King of Twinks. No. Right? Tim, I didn't call you the King of Twinks. I remember twinking was a big thing.
Tweaking the rule set or tweaking something.
Tweaking.
Yeah, I was uncomfortable with how close it was to the word twerk. That's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, but come on, Jimmy, bah humbug. Nah. We're gonna have fun with this tonight, guys. We're gonna go all over the place. So consider this like a pre-holiday chat. We'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. You know, we're gonna be bouncing all over the place with rule sets and ideas. Yeah, and if you have alcohol, please drink it. So, you know, it's gonna be another fun one here. So look at that. This time we're gonna be coming on like 8 minutes early. We're only on a minute early in the talk show. Come on, 8 minutes early. All right. So tonight. Good evening. Oh, look at that Santa, that evil Santa Claus. let me tweak. I said tweak again. There you go. Let me move people around just a hair. So, good evening. Happy holidays. Before I even introduce anyone, wasn't that a great show that Carlos put together with Luke Geiger? Because that was fantastic. Yep. So, yes. Good evening to all of you. I'm Jay Killer.
Sign of the high caliber of Luke that he was in the Army.
Yeah, well, yeah. So you don't need to bust Carlos's stones about being in the Air Force, man.
Hey! If you're in the service, you can tease other services, but if you're a civilian, you need to shut up.
Okay, all right, that's fair. That's fair enough.
That was awesome.
That's fair enough, Tim. That's absolutely fair enough. So I am Lord Kazumba, and I got with me tonight. Wow, this is a great crew. Like I said, I'm glad I waited a day to do this, Gabbin. I can't move this thing. I'm trying to move the head out of the way. Whoops, now I just did something. Give me 1 second. So we have Anna Meyer with me tonight. I have DM Brian, the 5e DM on my channel. And no, the channel doesn't explode when he DMs. So we get, 5e's okay to play on this channel with Brian and Greyhawk. And then I have the ever mysterious Tim on with me as well. So I have 2 Saturday Night Special DMs on tonight. And Anna, who plays in Brian's game with me. So we're going to talk about a great topic: campaign rules and customization. Man, let's take your campaign game and make it a not boring game, or make it something different. And here's the funny thing, guys: if you were listening to Luke's discussion, he talked about something specific that Brian does in his game, and Brian goes, "Oh, that's something very minor," but he said, change the death saves if you really want to make a Greyhawk tougher. And that's exactly what Brian does, right? And yeah, exactly what he does. So Brian's gonna talk about that. I'm gonna do a lot of linking tonight, guys. This is like impromptu and just to have fun with, and let's all celebrate the holidays together. We may have some guests that hop on out of the blue, say happy holidays, and log off. You know, just like Leonard Lukowski did on Legends of the Lore last week. You never know who's going to show up tonight. So if we do, so be it. It'll be a fun time. So guys, everyone's holiday going well, and what do you think about this discussion tonight? What do you think there, Brian? Start us off.
I am going to start us off by talking about the first customization of the night. 2 beers getting combined into one.
Yes! That's awesome.
So we had the 1554 and the triple from New Belgium Brewing. And this actually came from like a couple years ago. They put out a blend like a brewer pack, which came with a whole bunch of different beers. And they're like, here, put half of this one and, splash that one and splash that one. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and just slap some beers together.
And Brian, for science sake, you may have to do several iterations to make sure that, to get it right. So you might have to do it more than once.
Yeah, I mean, really, this came from my dad and I started brewing again, and the kegs were not fully ready yet. And I was like, crap. I don't want a beer tonight, but, I didn't want to buy too much. So, especially when I have 2 kegs coming. So.
I got some emotes out there.
Yeah.
Hey Mario, thanks for following too on Carlos's channel. I saw you did that too, so thank you very much. It's one of my customers actually, who's kind of watches when in his spare time at home. So, Tim, what do you think about this discussion tonight?
Well, when you mentioned it and I saw it was going to fit in my time frame, I started thinking about it because. There's a lot we can say about it, and I didn't want to go over just techniques. I wanted to kind of talk about, I was thinking about sort of principles of how you do something, not so much little tweaks here and there, but little principles that you can use when each individual DM makes decisions that fits their campaign. So that's what came to my mind. So I was jotted down a few things and.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sending me that. It was a good list, a good list of objectives.
I didn't put all my notes on it. I just bullet it.
Well, it's good though. I mean, it's really a good. We'll discuss that, but it really makes sense. You wanna have a plan. You just don't want to go and throw shit up against the wall and see if it sticks. Well, occasionally we do that, and then we say that it was our plan all along to do it that way, right? So, So Anna, I know this is going to be for your Pathfinder 2, right? You're going into Pathfinder 2 next year,
yeah,
right?
That will be the one game system that will run my next home game campaign in, or next 2. But I will also run a 5e game next year, so I will definitely have to look into both systems. Yep.
That's beautiful.
No,
awesome to hear. Oh, there goes that mix. I do it with coffee all the time. I take like a Dunkin' Donut blend, and I blend it with Jamaican Blue Mountain because it's so expensive, and I do that all the time, and not with alcohol. So,
and this is blended as well.
Yeah, what's that? Scotch whiskey.
It is whiskey, Irish.
There you go. It's beautiful. So, all right. Everyone knows from all the shows that we're 1E, 2E. Only in spirit, right? We have really deviated a lot from the purest of 1E, 2E, which is okay. I mean, the basic rule system's that we use THAC0, we use, the saving throw system as it was set, but we have really
the house rules have expanded to take advantage of new thought.
Absolutely, and that's where I figured this would be a good discussion: is what are some of those, how we incorporated them. And what we did to play test them. So I'm going to start with one, and then we'll just go around. We'll each talk about what we're doing. I did it again. Jeez, that's stupid. Stupid thing. I'm trying to move it. I'm trying to get it so it's, but I guess I'll leave it right there. All right. Classes. Oh man, I guess when you have a Dragon magazine as a kid, you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna here. He may even log in tonight if Leonard Lakofka's Archer, right? One of the first ones in the Dragon magazine, and we're like, this is such a cool class. And it says right in there when we're kids. Well, this is an NPC class, but if your DM allows it as a PC class, and I'm like, well, why wouldn't I allow it as a PC class? It's awesome. It really, bows are so underpowered in the game the way it's set. So we just started. We ran with that. How many classes do I use? There is the list, Jason. I don't. You want to count them? I think it's 38.
Wow.
3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Whoops.
It's interesting you said that bows were
40,
underpowered.
43.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would say you said that the bows were underpowered in 1E, 2E, and you. It's interesting in 3.5 and Pathfinder. Then missile weapon, especially bows, are kind of overpowered. So they are really, damn. You can get a lot of punch in when you use missile weapons because you have a lot of attacks and they do like a D8 each, and you.
Oh, see, that's insane with those.
Yeah.
So what we did was the following, and we just set this final customization rule up about a year ago, and that is multiple shots with a bow. It's 2 per round. The only class, and there's Elven Cavaliers, there's all sorts of weapon specialization with straight fighters and rangers. It doesn't matter. The multiple arrow rule maxes at 3. At 7th level for the Archer class only. The Archer class is our special class, and that's it. 3 arrows, Archer only. None of the other classes get it. 1 to 6 is the damage, gets medium and large. Now, what we changed was we added light crossbow does 1 to 8, and heavy crossbow does 1 to 10. That's the changes we made, and we just said no more of this special things with Cavaliers getting 5 arrows around. It's ridiculous. So we took that away, and Brian must have had a bad drink or something. So there you go. You popped off there for a second.
I know. I was trying something.
Yeah. So that's where we go is classes. We have a lot of classes, and yeah, Jason just said shit. Yeah, as you can see, it's up there. There's the bottom of the list, and a lot of them are from Dragon Magazine. A lot of them are from special publications. A lot of them are custom made by me or Bill or we had the other Bill make one. We have like Timothy S. Brannon. I think I said his name right. Hey, Mike, thanks, man. Has the Witch class. We use his Witch out of that publication. So there's a lot of different classes we utilize. We've gone over them in a lot of discussions, but that'll be my first customization is I do it because my players love variety, right? And that's why I do it. And that's we do balance and play testing and do all that stuff to make sure it works.
I was thinking that one of the things any time you're doing the customization, it should be like for the classes. It is actually they're variations on the 4 basics or 5 basics. Really, there's some sort of variation of it, which with a flexible DM and some really serious role playing, you could actually just keep the main class, tweak a few little things, and and have all those variations. But to keep everyone honest, we codify them so that way there's rule sets to keep it from. Because it's easy to say, you know what, my fighter, he's going to be a barbarian. He's going to live this way. Oh, but then he gets that +5 sword. Oh, he's going to change, and I'm going to do this. So you can't change if you're codifying what the rules are in those.
That's a great point, Tim, because I have Casey Brown now is making up his character for the Mega Stream when he drives down here from Boston. And he's talking about kits. We don't use kits in 2E because kits go all over the place. You take those books, Complete Fighter's Handbook, there's like 20 kits in there. We actually create the class in reverse, instead of use kits. And then we do that with proficiencies as well. That's a great point. So, excellent. I like that. I like that a lot. All right, Brian, what about you? What do you think?
I don't mess with classes.
I know you don't because you're a 5e guy.
The 5e has nothing to do
Okay,
with
that was a joke, Brian. It was a joke, man.
Yeah, no, I just personally like when it comes to like something as mechanically important as classes, I try to not rock the boat on that. I push enough crazy out there kind of stuff on a lot of other things that I don't want to mess with that. If people do want to bring up like for 5e, they're doing like the Unearthly Conan, that kind of stuff. If it's in an official public source, I don't care. You can play it as long as you own a physical copy of that book. I know a lot of people go out there to the electronics site that we all know about, right? That is there for archiving the past.
Yeah.
I don't care. I know you can get it there, but I want you to either own the online PDF or own the physical book if you actually want to play that class at the table. For the like ones that are not fully out there, they're still going through the play testing. I allow them after some discussion and like pretty intense review of those, but that's as close as I get to messing with classes.
Would you do a custom class if you found a hole in your 5e game and you really said, "Oh, this is a great idea from one of my players"?
The closest I came, I know I've talked about it quite a few times, is the Adventures in Middle Earth. That is a lot of custom content for 5e, and there's a lot of things that won't convert over there, but there was one class that is like a kind of natural healer type person that I would consider doing, but like I don't think I'd ever sit down and try to make a custom class. It's just not. I'd rather customize other things that are usable by everybody versus this one thing that I think is super cool, and because I think it's super cool, I'd rather just stay away from it. If somebody else want to do it, and maybe, but that's a real out there shot in my book.
So hopefully you guys, all these new resubs are getting, all these emotes are still being thrown out there, which is cool.
I wanted to say what Brian is talking about is that goes along with the point I was thinking about is whatever your customization is, it needs to support your campaign aesthetic. So
yeah, true.
However, your vision for the texture and scope of what you're doing, any customizations have to fit into that. And yeah, that's just basically what you described.
And it's got to be something that your players want. You don't want to force something on your players.
Right, it's got to be fun.
Yeah, it's got to be a fun time.
If you think about it, you could actually, for every fighter subclass there is, you could just be a fighter. And you as the DM, being flexible, could give them one or two little things and they would just role play the extra. Instead of making a rule about taunt, you could have it role played where the he taunts them to do stuff. And if he role plays really good, you as a DM, let it happen. And so really he's a fighter, but he's doing exactly, I forget what class taunts, whatever. But he's doing, you have basically the same thing in variety. It's not as codified, it's more role play based, but that depends on the aesthetic of the campaign.
Yeah, see, like what you're saying right now, like when people at my table go, "Oh, I tried to intimidate," I'm like, you don't get to just say I intimidate and you roll your dice. It's like I want to hear what you're saying, and then we'll determine if it's intimidating or not.
One's a game mechanic and the other one is a role play, and it depends. It depends on the players and the flavor. I
know some people are fully into the role play aspects of it, and they're there to roll the dice. But I do always try to, like, you don't tell me what you're rolling. That's my job to interpret what is. I get it. You're a lot better at intimidation than you are maybe something else. And so you want to go with that because it's better in your book. But
one of my friends when I would play college, and we didn't really have very many new classes. But whenever they would question somebody they captured, he would come over, push me back in the chair, and hold like he was holding a knife and like scream and yell in my face about all the questioning he was doing. And I was like, that is so darn scary. I'd give him bonuses. I'm like, yes, all right, I'll talk. Because he would role play. I want to cut your eyes out, whatever. And
to think that someone would actually be able to scare you, Tim.
Yeah, well, he eventually.
That's even more disturbing.
He eventually became a Navy SEAL, so it takes something to scare him.
have.
Take some.
Mhm.
Wow. So Anna, in your Pathfinder 2, are there classes or are there just?
Oh yeah, they're classes, but
Okay.
I'm just in the early days, so I haven't tweaked. But I've played 3.5 for like 10, 15 years, and then I played Pathfinder 2, 1 for another decade. So I kind of I only did the occasional tweak. I changed the names of some of the classes, and I tweaked some of the prestige classes to be more Greyhawk. But I also banned a whole lot of classes, and I said no, they don't belong. Like the guy that uses the gunslinger that uses
Merland.
exactly, yeah,
Priest
Merlin.
of Merland.
Yeah, so I just banned them. I said no gunpowder and no guns and stuff like that. I had enough of that in real world, so I don't want any of that in my fantasy game. So
That's why you went crazy. You went, oh my god, that time I had the cannon on the ship.
yes, exactly. I was like, oh, yeah. So yeah, I skipped that bit. So Magic have taken that over, so make it obsolete. So
Cool.
But I'm kind of I do the occasional tweak, more flavor than actually mechanics, because like Brian, I agree with you. The classes are kind of tricky to go in and tweak. I did that a lot back in the 3.5 early days when there wasn't that much third party published and stuff. Then we did a lot of back 20 years something ago, then we did a lot of weird things that some of it were really cool and some of it was terrible. But I keep the license to tweak my NPCs a bit. I sprinkle in and do weird stuff with them to add flavor, and I kind of skip some of the mechanics. If I build something, I don't give a crap if that actually would be a viable build if you built it as a PC, and I just do some of that. Okay, and sometimes I also make exceptions, because in several of my campaigns I've started them at 0 level and not at first level, so they actually have to earn their way into a character, which means that they get characters that are first level characters that are slightly more capable than the first level, and they usually have a skill or two and some other weird things that are left over from their teenage years, so to speak, when they were trying to find their path through the world, so to speak. So, and mine is also very, very sandboxy. So I always emphasize to my players that whatever feats and little plus ones or whatever, that's not essential. In order to survive and thrive in my type of games, it's to understand, find a role in the world, and kind of build your presence in the world and go with that. That's way more important than any feats or skills or whatever, so to speak. That's key. We can work around that in game, so to speak.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that was a good first one. So let's pull up something from one of our DMs here, and let's start with Tim. Tim, do one of your tweaks.
I don't have any.
You're such a liar. Come on.
Well, the tweaks
the critical hit table.
The critical hit table is my newest, one of my newest tweaks here. And,
for those who haven't watched,
it comes from Warhammer, because I played Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoyed that, mainly because combat is always deadly. When you go in, because of the way they do the rule set, every swing could be a critical, because if you roll a 10-sided die for damage, you roll a 10, you roll the hit again, and if you're successful, you keep rolling it, and every 10 you roll, you keep rolling until you stop rolling 10s, and that adds up. So you could end up hitting somebody for.
Are you saying just in basic Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, that's how it's done?
Yes.
Wow.
And the criticals come in. You're basically lightly wounded until you get down to you're seriously wounded when you have 3 wounds left. And somebody with a lot of hit points has 15.
Right.
That's after they've been there for a while. And
it's low magic too. It's low fantasy.
Yeah, magic is very gritty and everyone's suspicious of it, and it's very linked in the political colleges, and they like to burn people for being in the association with chaos. But when you get down to like 0, you're still there. But let's say you had 0 wounds, you take 4. Well, that means you roll crit. And so you roll a critical on the table, but you use the level 4 table. and you go, oh, okay. And somebody hits you again, and they take you 6 below. So each one goes below, but every single one you roll on the crit table.
Oh
So
my God.
it becomes deadly. And so maybe you survive a crit, but then you get an insanity point. It starts draining on you, affecting you. So it's traumatic to be involved in combat. And I like that system because you should think carefully about when you choose to use violence, and you should be always realizing that it can happen. So
what did you
I
do to
think
the tables to convert them to D&D?
I basically, because Warhammer has a hit placement system built in, I just basically added that into the table. So I adjusted the table so that when you roll, as we get closer to 100, you're getting closer to the higher and worse crits. So it becomes it's more random, but it's very, very nasty, which is why I kind of was doing the fighter, variation. So if you're a great fighter and somebody hits you and they're not as good and they get a critical, I was adjusting their roll negatively.
5% per level, right?
5% per level difference
up and
using
down.
their FATCO as a measure. It's really using the FATCO. So if their FATCO is 12 and Guerrilla is fighting and it was 6, that would take it down 30%. But I might not do that in the future. I might just.
No, I love it. You just won't do it because my character's 13th level. I have killed out, and if you've watched the Saturday Night Specials, my character Defilia, she's a 13th level Cavalier. I have killed outright 3 characters because of his crit table. Last Saturday night, I disemboweled one, right? And then the other guy, I decapitated him.
Yes.
Yeah, so
and
I'm not complaining.
Yeah. So you're not complaining. So, but it's purely random with arrows. Any missile weapons.
Yeah.
It's pure. So
yeah.
Because I think that reflects the random, surprising, shocking nature of missile weapons, and that is when it hits you, it gets you. And it doesn't matter what level you are. You just take it. Whatever you get, you're gonna take it. And so I'm waiting for that to happen.
I love your tables.
And
so.
I'm going to start incorporating, I think, a rolling for spells as well. So I'm going to give a chance for crits with spells. Like I think Magic Missile should have a chance to crit you. Why can't a Magic Missile crit you?
No. No spell crits.
Brace for impact.
Oh my God!
Brace
no.
for impact.
I have no issue with spells critting and whatnot, especially coming from a 5e thing. But just even Magic
modern
Missile.
game systems, they have it. Both Pathfinder and D&D 5 have, and even PF2 have even more. Lots of spells required to hit. And
Right, but I don't think Magic Missile is one that I would be like.
Exactly, Magic Missile is the exception. That
I
one
won't
is
roll to hit. It'll just roll to crit.
Oh, okay.
My God.
Oh wow. That's a cool way, Tim. I might steal that one.
And because I have fire and energy crits.
See, now I would say if you have a roll to hit or roll to crit, you also need a roll for crit failure. So if you
sure. So it'll be basically a 1 or a 20. If you roll a 1, something bad happens with your spell. If you roll a 20, something extra good.
It's no. Oh my God! You guys are giving them too many ideas.
I got a lot of support here, Jay.
All right, so I will say this one time: anything that slows Tim's rounds down is bad. Right?
Yeah, they take a long time.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to, in the game, you have to make sure that the game flows at least, right? So spell criticals, in my opinion, and only my opinion, are a bad thing. Now, failure of spells is a different story. If you roll and you fail, and then maybe you could have a special effect in that piece. But criticals of spells, I think, would be really up
Be more role playing next time.
Yeah. But that's just my opinion, and you guys, can do things whatever your ways you want. But let me tell you something.
That touches on game. It has to be manageable, whatever the tweaks are. So that was one of my thoughts. Is it needs to be manageable within the game mechanics.
Well, I love your crit table, and Brian, do you use crits at all in weapons? Anna, do you use?
Yes. I use crits, and I've used that. They had a card deck that was crit, so it was different types of crit effects, whether your weapon was slashing, piercing, or bludgeoning, or if it was a spell effect.
Okay.
and or natural attacks, and that was kind of cool. The problem was that some of them were that they also had the fumble deck, and that was kind of scary because the characters do way more attacks than the NPCs. So I only use the fumble deck at times, but I use the critical a lot, so they can simply choose double the damage and also a natural roll, because in both Pathfinder 3.5 you had to confirm crits. So my house rule was a natural 20 always do maximum damage of all the dice. That was the and then you had a chance to crit it. In PF2 it's interesting. Then you have success and critical success. And critical success is it's just 10 more than needed in order to succeed. That's a critical success, and critical failure is 10 less than needed to miss, so to speak. So you can kind of screw anything up, and you can also make almost anything a critical success. And there's various effects on skills checks and on weapon attacks and spells and stuff like this. So a lot of spells have a critical success and a critical failure built in it. But when it comes to spells, I think it's important that it's built into the rule system, because otherwise it tends to nerf a lot of magic users way more than intended. So for balancing, it might be tricky. But my thing that I've done, my biggest thing that I've done house rules and tweaked, especially combat, is both in 3.5 and Pathfinder, the effect is that low level characters can't hit high level creatures because the armor class and the to hit just inflates with level and goes completely bonkers. So that means that anything that is higher than 10 level difference or 10 challenge, then you can't even hurt each other. You can't, then you just screwed. So I wanted to even that out, and I wanted basically the combat to be grittier but not deadlier. So I had two house tweaks, and I mentioned them at the show before, but this is kind of on topic. So I'm going to make it a short about it. The first thing I did was that flanking stacks. I added flanking both pluses, both to hit and damage. So if two creatures, regardless of the position, if two attackers attack one opponent, they get +2 to hit and +2 to damage. Three opponents,
I love that.
Yeah, and three attackers +3/+3, and so on, scales upwards, at least up to like 8 or 10. And they usually kind of, if they use spears from second rank, and it sounds really scary, and that's the point, because all of a sudden I realized that combat started, I wanted to look like in the movies.
Was that hit and damage or just hit?
Both to hit and damage.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so it's really
I think it
nasty.
reflects reality.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, and then all of a sudden, my combat started to look like the movies. Shield walls made perfect sense to fight
no
in a
shield walls in
doorway.
D&D. You're right.
Yeah, you were not the hero that could just run around and do whatever. All of a sudden, you had to hunker down. You had to have formations. You had to use shield walls. You had to lots of cool stuff that way. And if you're out in the open field and surrounded by lots of enemies, damn, you'd be doomed almost no matter what, so to speak. And so ganging up on someone was vitally important, and that was really cool. But I didn't want it to automatically be more deadly. So the other tweak that I did was that low-level creatures and characters have way more, meaning constitution doesn't scale up with level the way that hit points does. Hit points just piles up, and you have hit points up the gazoo when you're high level. But so what I did was that when you reach 0 level, then all of a sudden constitution kicks in. So from 0 hit points to, or not 0 level, 0 hit points to your minus in constitution. That means if you have 10 constitution, from 0 hit points to -10 hit points, then you just staggered. You lose an action, that's it. And then you go from 10 to -20, then you lose, you can barely do anything, and then you get really unconscious. So you gradually get grind down and taken out of action, not immediately. You can kind of realize that you're getting drained and you're getting screwed up, and you can't run away, and
you're heavily wounded and bleeding out, but you're still moving.
Yeah, exactly. You're kind of slowly aware of, you grind down. So that means that you can get incapacitated by a lot of enemies, and they can taunt you and take you prisoner. So combat is not necessarily deadlier, but it's damn grittier. And that's something that my players realized in my campaigns, that all of a sudden a bunch of city guards can really overtake you and put you in prison way easier. So these kind of heroes that just taunt everybody and go around on the murder hobo and nothing can touch them, all of a sudden that changed. If you have a bunch of goblins with spears and whatever, damn, they're deadly. So that also means that the party can surround one enemy and simply demand them to talk, and if they want to survive, they will do it.
Yeah, we because of that, and because there was no way to set that in, we eliminated it by doing the rule of 3, because we always said that D&D combat's not static, so things are all moving around. So we said, well, most realistically, not with spears, but with swords swinging around and morning stars, really only 3 people are going to be able to attack one without hitting their own friends. You know what I mean? We're not talking about formational tactics. We're talking about free-for-all melee combat, but that's cool. I mean, it's a great. It's for your game. It sounds like it works out well, and I would not.
It adds to the flavor of it, so to speak, because you have to choose your how you fight, when you fight, and with who you fight. Way more careful than just running in and bash at something, because you might run into trouble real quickly, and especially the test. The few times I played PF2 can get damn deadly, and you crit way more often, and you can do a hell of a lot of damage quickly, so to speak. So
I like it.
I like it a lot.
So it's kind of fun that way, and it works both ways. So you just have to, meaning if you use that rule to your advantage and pick fights the right way, you can decimate the enemy real quickly. But so you have to think over your tactics, your battlefield tactics a bit more, and that have made the fun, at least in my games, have made the combat way more fun than just statically be on the same spot. Meaning you have to pick your fight and fight in that door opening rather than the doorway, rather than just being in the room, whatever. So
So at Darinanti, this is what's so good about this discussion. So we'll go around the table. I'm 1E, 2E, custom rules. Tim, what are you?
Say 1E, 2E.
Yes. Brian, what are you?
5E.
And Anna, what are you?
It will be previously PF1, now will be PF2, and I will also run in 5E. So it will be a little bit depending on who I'm running for. So I will run both, but I think I will keep those rules in 5E too. We have to do some test games and see some test one-shots and see, but I think I will keep that.
The great thing about this discussion is we got them all covered. So you've got all aspects covered. Great discussion on that topic. All right, Brian, let's get.
Whoa.
Oh, wait. I thought you were done. I thought you said you didn't want to use crits. Okay, go ahead.
No, I didn't say I didn't use
All right,
crits.
I apologize. Go ahead, Brian.
I didn't say anything like that. So unlike you fools, I attempted cards. I attempted charts. They're too damn static. You assholes all need to go and play. You're not an asshole.
Sometimes I am, so that's awesome. I've earned it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Everybody out there, I highly suggest, if you want to prime your GM ad hoc skills tests, go and run Edge of the Empire, any of the Fantasy Flight Star Wars variations, because you get a lot of you pass, but there's something horrible that happens, and then depending on how many dice turn out horrible, it just be a little bad to really bad. So I got really used to on the fly changing the situation by just reading the dice. And so anytime there's a crit, we roll percentile. If it's above 65, something special happens. If it's below 65, it's just double the dice. Just the same with the crit miss. If it's below 65, it's a swing and a miss. And then anything from 65 up can completely vary depending on the situation, the weapon you're using. There's a whole lot of difference in there. So I can't say oh, this is what happens on a 99. But typically when you get up into the 90s, you are hitting somebody that's next to you. You might slip and throw your weapon. There's a lot of things that go, the higher you get, the more distribution you get. So, or the better it gets for you, depending.
Are you going to incorporate it into your 5e game?
Dude, I do it all the time.
Okay.
That's
I don't recall when we were doing Fantasy Grounds, I guess we were under time constraints too.
Yeah, I was going to say part of it's time constraints on that. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. You have free reign the next time we run it too. If you want to put that stuff in, please do.
Yeah. Sometimes it's kind of obvious. Yeah. sometimes it's kind of obvious what could be the critical effect. So sometimes I just say that happens and that's it. But I try to avoid an extra roll. So therefore, but the cards. So when they roll, I kind of pick up the card and just look. So I don't let the players fiddle around with the card. I just pick it up as an inspiration for me, and then I just rule. That's what happens.
Just a randomizer assist.
Yeah, exactly. It's randomizer assist. Yeah.
So Diranante's making fun of Thaco, but that's okay. We don't use against armor class roll variables. It's not as bad. But I understand if you're used to playing a game where you have the numbers scale up on D20 or whatever. Hey, it's cool.
It's just a reference point.
It's just a reference point.
Skills.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say to hit armor class 10 and just use that as a comparison of
absolutely.
Although not all customizing rules are just combat.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry. What was that?
Sorry.
I said you may now proceed to the next topic.
I apologize because I thought you weren't. That's me. That's my bad. It's my bad. Absolutely, it's mine. I get the
right.
stones busted. So Brian, I'm gonna link this again, guys, because it's so awesome, and I've linked it many times before. But this is Brian's Obsidian Portal site for his game that we're about to discuss. All right, it's got a lot of great customizations on there. Alrighty, so check it out. So Brian, which one of yours do you want to talk about?
I am open for any one of them.
Let's talk about your deity system first. I love it. Your worshippers, and explain why it's so much different. I'm gonna lock this down on here.
So for the deities, one of the things that always irked me with like just any of the fantasy genres, there's a lot of like proof that gods exist, and so to me, like, knowing that these deities exist and they have a hand in things going on, it seems weird that they don't play a bigger role into everybody's day-to-day lives. Like, if you understood that, like, Hades, the Lord of the Underworld, existed, you might do something to maybe get in his good graces from time to time. That kind of stuff there. So when you choose to be a follower of a deity, not only are you kind of doing stuff to please them, but because there's proof that they exist, they actually have little benefits for you as well. And so every time the character chooses a deity, it's not required for my players. If they are a divine caster, they must choose a deity, but everybody else can choose one if they want. But regardless of if they are a divine caster or a fighter, anybody, if you worship a deity, you get a deity perk, which is something mechanical, and you get a deity kind of like a follower stereotypical attribute. So if we pull up the list here we go. Looking at Alona, so they get stealth. If you're a follower of Alona, you get additional bonus of stealth checks in the wild. You can only do this once per long rest for 5e. Starts as a +1 bonus, and then every time you get increase your proficiency bonus, it goes up by another one. So at level 2, it's not like it's anything game changing, but it can help. And then for them, their flavor piece is when attempting to forage for food, they only take what's necessary to survive. They're not going to keep on like stockpiling and stockpiling. And like I said, it's just kind of meant to give them, because that's one of the other things with the players is they kind of don't get a whole lot of connection with the deities. And so kind of trying to summarize what, I went out and pilfered a whole bunch of stuff from Greyhawk Online.
Which is what you're supposed to do.
Right. And I kind of summarize it to what I think the players need to know about, which is most of it, but I cut out some of the stuff there.
There's Greyhawk Online links for the Earth Journal and Greyhawk Online, and there's the Discord. Please feel free to join it. I am an admin, and as an admin on it. A lesser deity. I'm sorry. No. Proper terms. Yeah, go ahead.
If we're looking at the little lawful good, neutral good section here, my rules are if you're lawful good, if you're one of the alignments that are in green, you can choose this god without issue. If you are in one of the ones in the yellow, that's fine. I don't really care, but it's something you want to keep in mind. It's okay for you. If you are of the alignment that's in red, it's not off limits to you, but I want to have a discussion why you want that deity. And this comes down to the fact that realistically, these gods, they don't care what your alignment is. if they have another agenda. You know, if you are out there and they can be that, everybody has that hammer that sometimes you just got to smack the screw in because the threads are getting stripped, you know? So
I love it, and I've seen it in action and play because my Priestess of Palor in Brian's game has the heal ability, and I can heal 2 hit points per on anyone as a free action, if I recalled.
it's a bonus
The
action.
bonus action. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know 5e terms that
Yeah.
much, guys. I'm showing how old I am.
Yeah, and that's come along. I think we have 2 Palor worshippers in game, and one's a fighter, and one is a. I don't remember what the other one is, but they're not like typical healing type classes. So it's
Right,
nice to
unlike
have
mine.
somebody who's like, you know, one guy's Corbin a Palor, so like he's definitely a Palor worshipper.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have somebody out there on the front line, and you know, he's trying to be like more of a protectory type person, so he will go ahead and boom somebody up and.
And mind you, it's not just these. He's got them for every alignment, guys. And deities for all of them, even the evil ones on there. And if you click on each deity, you'll see the abilities they get. And this doesn't, irrespective of being a cleric or priest, this is just by worshiping that deity.
Do you? I was going to say, do you have like a cultural aspect, or maybe they have a pantheon? Maybe they don't, you know. If they want crops, they pray to one, and if they want, you know, to win a battle, they pray to another. Do you incorporate something like that?
So it's primary for this. The gods don't get angry the way we played it. If you do something to appease another one, the main thing is you can't deviate too far from their main outline. Once you do that, then you might be in a little bit of trouble. Also, like, I don't care. You can change your deity if you say, you know what, just in real life, this just isn't working for me. Some of the more, I'll call them happy gods, they're not going to care as much as changing. But the higher in influence you get, so the higher in level you are, the more they're going to want to keep you and make it a pain in the dick for you to change. But you'll also start to get recruited if you're showing signs from other ones. Now, these other folks are like, hey, come over here. So, yeah, I try to make it so that way they don't want to change willy-nilly. I don't want to punish players because they thought it'd work out for them, but it doesn't. But I also don't want them changing because all of a sudden this bonus looks a little bit nicer to them. Mm-hmm. So most of the bonuses are relatively simple. I'm more proud of the role play aspects that they come in versus the bonuses, but the bonuses are fun for the players. And we actually have one guy that's, I think I mentioned this several times. He chose to be in this world. He is, he's not agnostic. He's atheist. Even though he has met Alona out in the swamp, he chooses to believe. No, that's just some powerful person that we can't prove that's a god. I don't know what you're talking about there.
That's cool.
So
part of the role play.
Yep.
And Brian's campaign goes on in the salt marsh / cool marshes / burl area of the world. So he's got a lot of things going on. And I'm glad to hear your wife's doing a lot better now, too. You missed the salt marsh discussion last Wednesday.
Yes, we went to the doctor today. No surgery needed yet.
Good.
She has to go every week for x-rays, and assuming the wrist stays in alignment because it was way off dislocation.
Yeah, she was in a bad car accident, so that's why Brian was going to join in on the salt marsh on Legends and Lore last week. Yep, but hey, we got him for tonight, so yeah, it's good news to hear, Will, that Chrissy's okay like that. So I think for 5e, and this is just because maybe I'm a virgin when it comes to 5e for the most part. I think that the stuff that Brian's done on his Obsidian Portal site is should be published somewhere because it's so unique to what I've seen anyone else do.
It forces a cultural interaction with religion, which is it gives you more texture and complications, possible complications.
Depth. It gives the campaign depth.
Yeah.
It's important to so Anna, in your game, how do deities?
Yeah, I have a somewhat similar system, but I have a lot of campaign systems that I try to keep invisible to the players. They're just there for me to make the campaign work and to keep myself and my campaign creation online, so to speak. And one of the things that deities are real beings. I don't see a difference between deities and other planar things like demons, demon lords, and devils and stuff. That they're all these supernatural or like super powerful creatures that live forever in various other on the native plane. They have various forms, whatever, blah blah. And the basic idea is that they get their power from two different types of sources. Either they are worshipped by and adored by a lot of creatures. So if humans worship and ask for guidance and help from a deity, that gives that deity power. So deities go around looking for worshippers. That's the idea. They want to have converts that actually pray to them and go to their temples, etc. And the more powerful, divine powerful they become, the more priests and druids or shamans or whatever version that they're all kind of agents of the faith, so to speak, can they have. But there's another way deities can amass power. That's by fear. So evil deities, instead of having creatures that worship them, as long as you fear them, they get strength from that too. So deities can go one or the other way, so to speak. So like demon lords and devils, they don't want people worship them. They want creatures to be terrified of them because that gives them power. So you go one way or the other. But even demons and devils, they have a few cult leaders and others who are their divine agents who worship them, so to speak, and want strength. So there's like so deities can use both, but most good deities, they use the worshipping method, and the evil ones use the fear method. And then I also have something similar to Brian, because I give each character who have a religion or do something, they get standing versus various gods. So if they pray and go to temples, they get secret points that I put in there. And once they get certain amount of points, then the deity, or it might be the local priest, realize that, oh, we have a kind of a convert here that is very useful. So then they will train them in things, or they will hand them money or stuff like that. But eventually the god, him or herself, might actually pay attention to it, especially if the character goes out and does something in the name of the god or something. Then they can start getting real benefits and stuff. So, and urge them to convert and be a paladin or a priest and stuff like that. So I kind of put, it's like a secret. I do the same thing with alignment. I start putting points in various direction, good and evil.
Slip.
And once and I don't tell the characters. If you're just a regular rogue, for instance, or a fighter, it doesn't matter much. But if you're a druid or a priest, a cleric of some sort, then it really matters. And
How
also
much does that add to your overhead?
Not much. It's something I can do every session, or it usually happens during downtime. So
or
it's not that difficult.
Something you notice that's drastic.
Exactly. It's usually I just sum it up. That's simple. I have a character sheet for each character, my DM sheet for each character, and I can just tick it off, so to speak. It's very simple. So yeah, it's just a little, and then when I get 5, I just cross them over, and then I sum it up after each session into Evernote or Excel or whatever system I happen to use that year. So that way I keep track of things like that.
Well, go ahead, Anna. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that. And also, I want to think, why do gods and religions build temples and stuff? That's because every area that is sacred or hallowed to a god, that means that the god can use its senses through there. And the same thing with holy symbols. So a god can see. So a temple, that means that if you're in the temple, there is a slight chance that the god can hear in and see. And that's why they have high towers on the temples, because there is a holy symbol on the top, which means that the god deity can see everything within range from that. And that's why they want to build temples on high mountaintops and stuff like that, because they get a perch to see from. So
temples give you a target for pilgrims to come.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
And that builds power in the world.
And also showing you're glorifying your deity by building the structure.
Yep. So that gives the deity a mechanic, and I can use that sometimes when there's like political. I can make a roll and use that as a plus, and it's also a chance for a deity to see what's going on. So deities that wants to be influential in the world, they want to have a network of temples and priests and stuff everywhere that can report things to them, and they can see things and stuff. So yeah.
Well, I'm convinced there's 300 deities in the city-states. So.
Oh wow.
There is. I mean,
a whole bunch of them. And
yeah.
there's a lot of political pressure to keep it under wraps. But I'm going to
300, and it says it right in there.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tim
The
City
Overlord, the Overlord keeps it. He stays religiously neutral because religion is that great key to try to overthrow someone. It's a great,
Yeah.
tool to use against the oppressor. So he's very keen to placate and stay neutral.
Yeah. And I also use there's a hierarchy of deities, which means that the higher level or CR of a creature, the more useful they are and the more power they give to the deity who they fear or worship. So if you're like a top level deity, like you're like the Lord of the Nine Hells, for instance, he doesn't need to have a lot of common worshippers because the other demon lords and demons fear him, and that gives him strength. So you can, and the same thing with pantheons. You can have the lead god of the pantheon might not have many worshippers or priests directly, but he or she is worshipped or feared by the other gods beneath it in the pantheon, and that gives them enormous, tremendous strength because the other gods follow or fear the leader of the pantheon. So yeah.
Cool topic.
Well,
Go ahead, Tim.
Well, I was going to say there is more customization that we can talk about, but I didn't know you were going to say it.
Yeah, and I give also the the deities have a lot of special abilities. Like they have things like they can use detect magic or spellcraft to see magic that happens within miles around, so to speak. So if you cast a spell and you're close to Ayus, for instance, in his territory, he might be able to detect a high-level spell wherever it's cast within his territory, which means that it's getting really tricky to approach him. So high-level magic. And the other thing is that why doesn't deity simply go in and overwhelm the prime material plane and start fighting and doing all sorts of stuff? And then I realized that I need mechanics for a reason for not that happening. And so I realized there are two ways a deity can come in. They can either come in person, and that means that they can't be detected. They're just like a regular creature, but immortal and very powerful that walks the planet. The problem is then if someone kills them, they are actually killed because it's their own physical form that comes in. But they can also use an avatar. And that means that an avatar means that then they're in a safe spot in their own hideout and in their own realm, and they can send the avatar in to do all the dirty work. The problem with that is that an avatar is some form of magic, so it's detectable. The other gods can detect if one day powerful beings send in an avatar to start stirring up things. So you can go the risky way or you can go the safe way, but the safe way is detectable, and that's why a lot of gods
I could see a whole bunch of gods making a deal. All right,
yeah.
Nobody goes in.
Yep.
Because we're all going to go in if we all go.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you have pantheons. There's a lot of gods, they kind of gang up. That's why you have the devils have the master, the one running the nine hells and so on. So he sends in his lower minions to do his dirty work for him. They don't want to risk it. So I try to have mechanics that kind of underpins and support the kind of campaign I want to run.
I love that the Greyhawk deities have a lot of flavor to them, and that but I always thought that there was a few missing. So like for me, customization, I've added in, like, remember when Gary Gaga started, he used Thor and Odin as his. Oh, here comes our first special one tonight, Brian Blumklotz. Hey, Brian. Awesome. I'm glad you could hop on, man. So
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hot chocolate.
That's that. Are you gonna mix? Are you mixing hot chocolate and beer now? What are you doing, bro?
So no.
I'm not opposed to the beer floats though.
It is hot chocolate and peppermint schnapps. There's the way to go.
That is awesome, Brian. Thanks for coming on. Let me just finish that one point real quick. So I added in. And remember, deities and demigods was there, so I've added in deities from there. I use Elmater. I use Heisi, the god of evil. I use Hel, which is there are a lot of the Finnish deities. We've utilized Leviathan is one of my favorites of all time. Well, they exist in my Greyhawk world because that's what the way mine is. So you can customize your campaign as well by adding deities beyond that. I use a couple of deities from Forgotten Realms where I think there's a big hole. For example, the deity I love the Red Knight, the deity of battle and combat planning. I really don't think there's a lawful neutral combat planning deity. I mean, Hexer could have that lawful neutral aspect. I think it's missing in the humans. So
Athena touches it.
Athena touches it, but I'm not using so
Right.
the Red Knight works for us. I'm just saying there's ways to customize. We're talking deities in this part of customization.
Red
Brian,
Knight is
so.
Athena and Greyhawk.
Yeah, very true. No, you're absolutely correct about that. And as Brian always says, if you're not ripping off someone else, you're not trying, right, Brian?
Or plagiarism is the sincerest form of flattery.
Exactly. All right, that's the way to put it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I absolutely agree that using things that fit into your concept of what you're doing is perfectly legitimate. I mean, I've known people to alter Greyhawk gods. I know that DM Shane changed the gender of Oldamara to female, and that made sense for him in terms of how his campaign was running. And
that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, there's a the fact is, even though Gary assigned a lot of gender roles, very specific gender roles to deities, if you read their write-ups from the original box set, most of them are pretty fluid in terms of how they appear to people, in terms of the avatars they present. There really isn't a whole lot. There's a lot of different things going on there.
Corel Lorethian says
exactly. He's
compare male or female.
Exactly,
but there's other Corellian's the most obvious. There's other deities that are doing much the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. Ula has some aspects to her that are, depending on where she's appearing.
I like I like the idea that really the mortals can't fully know it, so they bring their own awe. They bring their own awe to their religiosity. So
makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can even have two different deities can just be different aspects of the same deity. Like you can have Ubadhai and Biri. There could be the father of nature and the mother of nature can actually just be nature, and if you want to. So there's different ways you can tweak it if you feel like it, so to speak.
Yeah, and I've always looked at the basic outlines that were given to us in the Greyhawk box set and the folio. These are just guidelines for things, and specifically from a human perspective, and a particular human perspective, Pluffett Smedger. If you want to deviate from that, and because he's actually an unreliable narrator. If you really look at how he writes things, there are contradictions in what he writes. He definitely kind of puffs up the human side of things and kind of poo-poos the demi-humans in that book. But I mean, so like on the gods, for me, one of the things I've done is Hexter and Heronius, the brothers, are actually human avatars of Tiamat and Bahamut in my campaign.
Yeah.
So that's just a little twist I put on it, just because I needed a reason why Bahamut and Tiamat weren't front and foremost. And all it is there's sort of this central conflict. At least in the original version of Tiamat, she was lawful evil. Now she's chaotic evil in 5th edition for some reason. But originally she was lawful evil and lawful good. And that kind of juxtaposition of those two, those two stories made sense to me, and that humans would humanize something in their hubris rather than worship a dragon. And that's just a little thing I chose to do in my campaign, and it doesn't really change anything to any great degree, because Heronius worshippers are still worshiping at Heronius, and they still call him the Great Axe and all that. It's just a little bit of lore that's hidden away in my campaign. I don't think anyone's really discovered it. I just blabbed it to the whole world here. So
they need to make an insanity check when they find out the truth, though.
Oh, I'm sure that there'll be a holy war over that and saying, no, it's not true. You can't.
The heresy, the Bahamut heresy.
Heresy, yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Good topic on deities. Brian just hopped in here, and Brian, thanks for you can stay as long as you like. You're welcome as long as you wish.
I wish I could stay longer, but I actually have to go do some last minute food shopping for Christmas
Okay.
and get ready for the holidays with my family. I'm gearing up. But I just wanted to come on, wish you all a wonderful holiday season, and say hello to the Greyhawk community and say it's been a really good year.
Yeah.
I've been very happy with all the things that we've been given and all the things that we've created. And, I see next year as just a continuation of that. And maybe, just maybe, we'll get some love from Wizards of the Coast and we'll finally get to But I'm not holding my breath. We'll still continue doing what we're doing, whether they do that or not. And, I look forward to seeing some of you at GaryCon. So
Yeah.
Brian, you never know what's going to happen because the other Brian's been talking to me and he's like, Brian, say what you said.
I mean, I said a lot of stuff.
He doesn't know which one you're talking
He's
about.
trying to, he's like, just go.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Just go.
Yeah.
Just go.
I'm getting there.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So hopefully I haven't
Hold
canceled
out the
anything.
record and just go.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Just go. Yep.
So we're almost there, and I got till the 30th, so we're gonna make some decisions.
Yeah, I'm almost
You
there.
guys got to remember. So if you don't know Jay as long as Tim and I, Jay really loves himself. A lot.
Stop.
Brian, are you saying that Jay drinks a cup of himself every morning?
No. Brian.
Yeah.
Brian knows me from a lot, and from all those years of having to deal with all those insane people on there. You have to be a megalomaniac to even get anything done in a guild. And so, but then again,
I mean, let's be honest. Any of us that are DMs,
Jay, aka False Seduce.
No, I'm not that bad. Well, maybe, but. But Brian, thank you so very much for coming on, hopping on. It means a lot to us. It really does.
Very, very welcome.
We're going to keep on going with everything. If you get off and you want to link Greyhawk Resources Facebook page on here, if someone wants to sign up who hasn't, please do so on that. I'm sorry, I don't have a shout out for it.
I have permissions to post a link into the chat?
Absolutely. I have it for everyone. I let people post
links.
Oh, okay.
In.
Yeah,
right.
Please do that. Please do that. And
sure.
And happy holidays, Merry Christmas, happy holidays to you, Happy New Year to you. We'll be seeing you soon. We'll be talking, and Brian runs the Greyhawk Online Discord as well, guys. So
I co-run it with Christoph.
Yes, with Icarus.
Brian, we'll keep an eye out for those dragon worshipping heretics.
Oh yeah, well, and the Earth Dragon doesn't like people either, so there's all kind of dragon heresy out there.
It's great. That's what's
and then of course I have like 6 or 7 different ways to bring Dragonborn into Greyhawk, which is the ultimate.
No, don't just shut.
That is a tough.
Now you're the.
We'll save that for another episode.
I was just going to say, Dragonborn is the only thing that almost derailed the Flanders Geographical Society. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Very sensitive.
People can handle tieflings. People can handle tieflings, but you mentioned Dragonborn.
Dragonborn, that's scary.
Yeah, but you have Minotaurs in yours, Brian. I guess that's
okay. No, I don't.
No, the other Brian does.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the other and Goliath.
In my current campaign, I have a Ladrin who came in from the Land of Fairy, aka the Feywild, in a one-way gate, and she's stuck in the Flanaeus near Keeland. And
I can't criticize any character.
Right, and then we have a changeling from the Eberron setting, but what we've done is they're a thrall-bred race from the Scarlet Brotherhood, and she escaped. She was bred for infiltration and assassination. Cool. And then I have a human monk. So
don't say that to Skagith.
And
he might not be on.
Nah, he's not. I was
kidding. Yeah. So we have a bard, a rogue, and a monk. The ultimate power trio.
Whew, man, frontline fighters.
Oh yeah, it gets hairy.
That's awesome.
Anyway, you can bring anything you want into this game. You just figure it out.
Oh yeah.
Or say, like for me, I don't allow drow player characters in my campaign right now. That's reserved. And if someone wants to bring a Dragonborn in, they have to come and talk to me because I have ideas how to bring it in, and I want to have a discussion with the player before I do it. So I technically right now there are no Dragonborn appearing on stage and on screen. And yep, it's a perfectly legitimate thing to do. Just as it is perfectly legitimate to put them in there. You can just assume they're there or whatever. But that's a topic for another day, and I need to let you guys get back on track.
Mike says Merry Needfest to you on the discuss on the chat. So Brian, thank you so very much for hopping in and saying happy holidays.
Yeah. And my campaign's only a couple days away from Needfest because the clock is ticking, and a certain thing is going to happen on the 4th of Needfest in that campaign if they do not get their butts in gear. So anyway, warning, danger. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later.
See you soon, Brian. Thank you.
You're
awesome.
welcome.
Have a good one.
Talk to you later. Okay, where's my stop the video thing here?
I can always go kick, but I don't want to be mean.
No, I'm leaving the meeting. Have a great holidays. Good to see you all. Bye.
All right, see you, Brian.
Yeah.
That was very nice. There we go. Yeah. So we had a good, nice shout out there. All right, so back to customizations. I got one up. Let's talk about it.
Yep.
Weapons. I hate longsword, bastard sword, or two-handed sword, short sword, dagger. That's it, right?
Yeah. I'll be back in a minute.
Sure, no problem, man. So what did we do? There's a couple articles out there that discuss weapons, use some common sense. We added the following list is what we have as our approved swords. We're only talking about swords, we're talking about blunt weapons. So some of the favorites, I love the Dacian Falx. What a great weapon that is. And it's a 1.5 weapon like a bastard sword, and you actually get some pluses for wielding it two-handed. Really cool weapon, and you can see that right below bastard sword. Dwarven Claymore. A custom weapon, a two-handed, almost like a bastard sword for dwarves only. Neat weapon. Kopesh is on their Tricana. Rapier and epes give you bonuses for parrying, so we added that in. The Elven Thin Blade is kind of like almost like the fencing weapon for elves, right? But it's a little bit wider than a rapier. It's a little more flat, so we added that in. Just some ways to do some.
Like a Tai Chi sword.
Yes, I just don't want to use the Asian Oriental discussion terms. So we have Sayax in here as well, which is almost very similar to a longsword. It's just a different style. That's what we do. We added a lot of different weapons by request, and I've added magical ones of each by request. So check out Greyhawk Resources, guys. Brian linked it there. So what do you think about that, Tim?
I am a sword snob, as you know.
I know you are, because you. Yes, I know, because you're Arma.
So, I was actually just recently thinking of the bastard sword and changing it, making it better, because it does. I'm going to say bastard sword because bastard sword probably replicates a true long sword as far as the medieval Renaissance.
A 1.5, right?
Well, a 4-foot long sword that can be swung one-handed, but it's obviously better too. The way they do the 2 dice to damage, 2 die 4, that basically makes it less powerful than a longsword, because the chances of rolling an 8 and with a longsword is 16%, and the chance of rolling the same thing with a bastard sword is less. Basically, because there's 2 dice, there's a bell curve there. So now it's much less likely to roll an 8. So
I got it.
I'm doing 2 to 9, and then I haven't figured out how I'm going to do the large opponent yet. But it's going to be basically 1 die for the damage. It's going to be a little bit plussed up, because let me tell you, I can take a one-handed sword and hit you with it, and I can take a 2-handed sword, and you will notice the difference. I mean, training, you will definitely. Yeah. There is a massive difference. So,
once again, converting that in a customization over to actual gameplay where it's not over abused, right?
Right. Yeah, I don't mean like 1 to 10. Like I said, two-handed 2 to 9. I think is reasonable.
So you want to up the damage on it by a point.
Right, but it also makes it a linear graph.
Right, change the curve.
Linear as opposed to a bell curve.
Well, I mean, we don't have that many people.
Same thing for large creature damage.
Right, got it. Makes sense.
That's what I'm thinking.
Absolutely. 5e. Does 5e allow Brian and Pathfinder Anna? Does that allow for extra weaponry?
To me, this is all just flavor. I mean,
That's exact. Okay. Okay.
yeah. I mean, I don't care if you want to tell me you have your longsword looks like a phallic symbol. I don't care. As long as you're.
Still Brian's for tricky.
I'm okay. So I'm a
I
beer.
can
and a
tell you
half
it won't
guy.
work as good.
I'm just saying, like to me, like this is all just flavor. It's
Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to me, like if somebody
Flavor
says,
is
"Hey, I
good
want it
for a
my longsword
campaign.
like this," I have no issue with that.
Right.
In both PF1 3.5 and PF1 and even in PF2 not that many, but in PF1 with third party there are tons of different weapons already, so I felt some of them I renamed and put them in there with Greyhawk flavors. So some of them were like a Becloonish something or an old Iridian something, just for cultural flavor, and they had they have like different damages and so on, and some of them have like a special effect and ability, and they do critical in a certain way and stuff like that. And even in PF2 there is more flavor to weapons. They can do certain things, and you can have certain feats attached to them and stuff like that too. So there you have even more stuff that you can kind of weave into the weapons. But I've rarely found the need to tweak them myself because there's been so many varieties. So I just changed the name, and I also did a lot of these kind of shading, like just a silhouette picture of image of weapons. So I had them both my own reference, and I can tell the players this is what this type of weapon looks like.
Right. Yeah. When I do mine, like because I have the Masterworks section set up on my page, and when I hand out the Masterworks, I always give a description of what it is, what it looks like. I give go out and I grab a little picture, and I give a little landscape, little snippet of it. I hand it to the player, and like it'll be like a Kopish or a big falchion or something like that. But like, underneath it'll say longsword. Like here's the proficiency it ties into. Here's what it behaves.
I got it. That makes sense.
You could
like
take almost every
description-wise, it
single
can look
weapon.
like anything, but like the proficiency and the behavior is tied to.
So, but it does the longsword damage, and that's a flavor thing.
You could put almost everything within
You also
the
got
categories of the original weapon.
5e, longsword is a D8 wielded one-handed or D10 wielded two. So they merge a lot of this stuff by doing the versatile weapons.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Second thing I wanted to discuss real quick is our parrying modifiers. Now, I don't know if this is going to be a 1E, 2E THACO thing, but we do it by class, and we have this table set up. And if you're parrying, and that means you're actually actively defending, it's based on, it just works the way we do miniatures style. So you have it, -5 is the highest, all the way down to -1 based on the class. I'm not sure how that's done in 5e.
5e, there's anything that there's class mechanics tied to, such as parrying, where you can certain classes have a reaction where you can expend a die of some sort of variation or add your proficiency, that kind of stuff there. I don't want to add something from my piece that replaces a class mechanic. So like if it's something available via a class, I try not to go near that because I want that class to remain. That's a draw for it.
It's not in 1E, 2E though. See, that's the thing. It's not a 1E, 2E thing. So for us, we had to figure out how to do it. Really, because you say I'm parrying, there's always -4, right? Tim, across the board, it was just -4.
Yeah, it was parrying. Basically, you're being defensive stance. You're not attacking. You're trying to avoid being hit, and you're using your weapon
for
to stop
5e, there's I forget what classes have it, but like you can say that you're the fighter, battlemaster fighter is one of them where as a reaction, so somebody's attacking you, you can use what's called your combat superiority die. You roll that gets added to your AC.
Okay.
So like for me, I don't want to touch that because that's something that's built into a class, and I don't want to corrupt the desire for that.
Tim, you do it very similarly, correct?
Say again?
You do it very similarly because we're both 1E, 2E guys.
Yeah, but I've been actually, as I'm revamping all the proficiencies and non-weapon proficiencies and I'm looking at a change.
Okay. Well, you've been changing a lot, which is cool, man. So it's good to hear. It's good to hear that you're really fleshing some things out. So.
I'm gonna steal some stuff from Warhammer. So,
That's okay. We saw the crits, and that's a wonderful thing. I don't know how to handle it in Pathfinder.
I do it the standard way, and I think it's all left over from 3.5 is that you have a total defense. If you said that you want to parry instead of attacking, you can take the defense action, and you're just trying to defend yourself. Then you boost your armor class 4. And that's the standard way that any character can just make themselves try to parry all the attacks instead of defending themselves instead. And that's also a good defense against all the creatures that try to attack you if you get overwhelmed, like in with my rules when flanking stacks like that, because that also helps bringing down the armor class, and you get more, instead of trying to attack one, then you can defend yourself against everybody, because that makes everybody have 4 harder to hit you, so to speak. And it also works against the bonuses for flanking. But I also use another one. Certain combat can be really important, like when you're jousting or when you're dueling, or not when you're just like generally running around skirming each other, but you have a fight when you have one opponent and there's nothing else. Then I can decide that creatures can, and they can do that in general combat too, but I usually would not allow it. And it's armor class, you simply assume that you're taking 10. That's a 3.5 Pathfinder term, but the base armor class for any creature is 10. And that means that you take 10 on it, but you can also risk it by saying, I don't take 10, I roll a d20. So you roll a defense roll just like you make an attack roll. I normally don't allow it because that will increase double the number of day rolls. But in really important combat like jousting or duels, and now it's me and the other combat, and they're going head to head for the death, so to speak. Then you can actually risk it by doing an active defense roll. So you actually roll, which means that your armor class can be way worse, or it can be worse or better, depending on luck. So you do that, and that adds another kind of, anyone can survive it, so to speak, almost any attack, but you can also screw it up. So it adds a bit of chance and up to the luck a bit, and that has kind of made some combat more fun when it really matters, so to speak. When you have that super dragon fight and it's you and the dragon and you don't know if you're going to survive or not, then you can decide to take a defense roll instead of just take 10 on defense.
So, Frank, I'm sorry. You have Brian apparently has a major number cruncher at his table, and you were doing it in generalizations. I think Brian went down into detail.
No, he gets into, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, on average it can be that, but he broke down the numbers, and I was like, dude, you need to get laid.
Oh yeah, your guy at your table. Well, we have one. Alan's a number cruncher at ours. It just is.
Yeah, you always have, and
you always have one. You always have one. It's just cool.
And they're useful too, Blood.
So. Yeah, and in a lot of instances they are absolutely. So Chip,
he's great because he's the guy. When I go to, I'm like, hey, I don't know this rule off the top of my head.
Hey Casey. Hey Casey, I didn't realize you were on, man. Good to see you. All right, so well, I'm gonna hopefully you can stick on because I want to talk about something for you.
Sorry.
Okay.
PF2 have also a shield mechanic, so you can actually use an action to hold up your shield, and then that will absorb one attack if they attack you. So that way you can absorb one attack with it, and the shield might take damage from it. But it's a cool way of introducing shields. Get even more useful. They're just not +2 to armor class, or something. They actually something you can use. You can spend actions on using your shield, which is really cool.
We have one class that allows to attack with shields and or spike bucklers and stuff like that. So we're getting there.
One class,
Well, the shield thane, which is the dwarven, it's almost like a dwarven defender can do a shield bash with a
any
with a shield.
fighter can in PF1 3.5. Any fighter that can use a shield, you can bash with the shield.
Tim, stay awake. Tim, stay awake. What have you been up since 3 a.m.? No sound. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
I was just sitting here thinking about all the various comments, but I wasn't making any.
That's okay. So Tim, do you have another customization? We went over your big one, which is your critical hits. I was thinking, for you, you have, because it's a separate campaign setting, than Greyhawk.
Well, the world's customized.
Well, yeah.
And bits of it have been from, bits of published stuff has been stuck into it. So that's kind of
So someone is calling me, and I think it's Luke Gygax.
Oh,
Keep talking, guys. Hello.
Oh. So
Hello.
that's what I did.
Hello.
no,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
think
cool.
world customization's a must for anybody.
Yeah, and Jay got it. Yeah.
I think even with Greyhawk, new DMs or whatever shouldn't get too worried about sticking to a canon, because you can always explain it away with misinformation that you were told, or
Mm-hmm.
that's, there's also illusions, or there's so many different ways to do it. So people should customize it to fit their
Yeah.
texture, their
Yeah.
aesthetic, how they want to do it.
Yeah, that, when you mention illusions, I think that's one of a lot of people simply say, well, I try to disbelieve it. And when I deal with stuff like that, I automatically say that takes an action to do
Yeah,
that.
oh yeah, absolutely. But
Yeah.
my buddies in college would always say, I just believe it. I'd be like, do you close your eyes? And they go, yes. And I go, you don't see it.
Yeah.
That was pretty much
Yeah.
the result of almost every attempt to disbelieve us. Do you
Yep.
close your eyes? Yes. You
Yeah.
don't see it
That's
anymore.
always what Tim says. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tim,
And I always
I would let them roll for certain things.
Tim is big on the illusions, as we all saw in the Saturday Night Special. He had illusions all over the place.
I had one big illusion, illusionary terrain of undisturbed earth.
Yeah, he had a lot of. Tim has always been big on illusions.
Oh, I guess the deck of illusions too. Yeah.
Yeah,
They were trying to stop you.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
smart.
doing their plan.
It was smart.
I would have killed somebody.
Yeah.
And illusions get tougher and tougher. If it's a really powerful wizards or caster and you're low level, then they get really difficult to disbelieve, so to speak. And it takes actions to do it. So you have to spend an action on trying to disbelieve it.
Well, back to that fight, Jay. The biggest problem they had is that they're chaotic evil. If they were lawful evil, they would have probably succeeded.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's Chaotic Evil does a lot of dumb things.
Chaotic
So
evil. They're stupid and emotional.
Yeah.
One guy summoned you killed this familiar, so he's acting all emotional.
well, that was really funny actually. He deserved it. All right. So Brian, let's get to your big one, guys. This is going to be an awesome one, right?
I mean, anything I do is awesome.
That's kind of the DM name, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Flora of Greyhawk, guys. And once again,
Oh yes. There we have it. Yep.
let's talk about Brian's. Now, Brian is a low. It's kind of like Will, your game. It's low fantasy, where there's not a lot of magic items. So Brian supplements it with this. So.
Yeah. So first off, magic items. I would prefer there's this whole masterwork thing of there's not so much magic items. There's well-crafted stuff going on. There's a whole page or a whole section in the crafting section. Good night, Shane.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole section in the goods and crafting type section on there. If you want to look at it, great. But the flora, I had a couple of folks that were really diehard about like making potions and having something that they can keep a just keep a source of income, or we don't really have a dedicated healer, so I wanted some way that people can constantly be making potions if needed. In Wicked, Masterwork is a great way to go because they also get the ability to choose what kind of magic item they're getting. Granted, they have to pay for it and they have to do quests and whatnot and that kind of stuff. But I'm going to get off topic with that. So I spent, God, Jay, how long did I spend on this? Like 3 months?
Yes.
Yeah, but you had some awesome ones in there. So yeah.
Absolutely. It was a long time, and it's just for 5e. It's brilliant. So.
So this is. I had a lot of it fleshed out pretty quickly, and there's all sorts of different methods. I tried to think of like, if you were out there in the world, how would you take something you found on the road? So like you got like the simple methods, which are something that you don't need any skills for: eating it raw, making a tea, smashing it and rubbing it into a wound, or smoking it. I added the smoking because I had one character, Don, who plays Cleth, who is a former merchant sailor. Who's always smoking a pipe. He's like, hey, put this in there. I want it. And then there's the advanced things where it deals actually with checks. So like you guys making a potion, making an ointment, tinctures, coatings, which coating is like a really weak poison. and a poison, which is so coating is like something you smear on your weapon to stab somebody, where poison is something you pour into a drink. Is kind of what I put it out as. That part was the simple part. It was going through and I made 15 different, no, more than 15 different herbs. I forget the total amount. I think it's like 24 different herbs, 5 different levels of variety, of rarity. And then I made a combination for each one of those, minus a few because they didn't make sense to have that kind of combination. And there's very few repeats. There's not a lot of like, oh, here's a plus, this, if you made this into a potion, it's a healing potion, because I did a lot of that with compounding. So you get that, but like, there's not like one for a greater healing. That's like one of the few that have that. But because I allow compounding of potions, taking 2 potions and compounding them into 1, I didn't want to do that with a lot of things.
I think it's genius, the level of detail that goes into this. I mean, I think you should put this in a book and put it on DM's Guild. That's my opinion. Enough said.
Let me herbs. I'm trying to see here. I don't recall if it's on my work computer.
And then there's what they have located.
I know I sent you the list of the herbs completed. I'll try to pull it up here real quick, but I know you had that screenshot. So what's going on? Because I use the Adventures in Middle Earth travel rules, I allow for folks to make a check to find herbs, because part of this was also a lot of people saying, oh, I want to go ahead while I'm traveling, look for herbs. And it's like, all right, well, hell, you got to kind of think about how you want to handle this. And so I decided coming up with this chart was kind of the best way to do it.
Did you assign them like growth regions, like tropical, subtropical?
I kind of, I didn't
show sun or needs partial
I
shade.
have them up there. So like if you look at, let me go to the Zoom here. So if you look, there's the found in. It's kind of blurry on Jay's screen, at least in here. So like Glory Bulb, the top one. It says G, which stands for grasslands, and then MA for marsh. Those are the 2 areas that they have found that in. If we look down at the tar fungus, that's a C. It was found in a cave. So they know they can find these in those areas. Like the yarrow root, they only found in a marsh. I'm really hoping none of my players are looking, because I'm about to... Jay, I apologize if this does something stupid.
If I need to switch you over to screen 10 and a widescreen, I can do that.